You paid more for that stack of 2x4s than your dad paid to frame his whole garage, and half of them still twisted into propellers before you even got them nailed up. Prices went way up. Quality went the other direction, and nobody at the lumber desk is going to explain why. That's what this video is for. Real quick, hit subscribe before we begin, because this channel is all about saving you from expensive mistakes. I'm Jerry Davis, and after 30 plus years of framing, remodeling, and tearing open walls other people built, I can tell you exactly why the stud you buy today is worse than the one from 1985, even though it costs 3 or 4 times as much. And by the end of this video, you'll know how to read a board in 10 seconds, which boards to reject, where the bad ones can safely go in your house, and when to skip regular lumber entirely. This stuff will save you real money on your next project. Trust me, this matters. So let's kill the first myth right now. People assume that when prices go up, quality goes up with it. That's how it works with most things you buy. Not lumber. Lumber prices climbed because of tariffs, mill closures, wildfires eating up Canadian timber, and plain old supply and demand. Framing lumber is sitting around $600 per 1,000 board feet right now, and Canadian wood is carrying combined duties in the 35% range. None of that money buys you a better tree. You're paying more for the same product. Actually, a worse one. Here's why it's worse, and this is the part no one tells you. That old stud in your grandfather's house came from a tree that grew slow in a natural forest for 80 or 100 years. Look at the end of one of those boards sometime. The growth rings are packed so tight you can barely count them. Tight rings mean dense, stable, strong wood. Now look at the end of a 2x4 from the big box store. You'll see maybe 6, 8 rings wide apart, and a lot of the time you'll see the pith, the bullseye, the very center of the tree, sitting right there in the middle of your stud. That's because today's framing lumber comes from plantation trees, bred for speed and cut at 25 to 40 years old. And here's the problem with a young tree. The first 15 to 20 rings of any tree are what's called juvenile wood. It's weaker, less dense, and it shrinks and moves in ways mature wood doesn't. In an old growth log, juvenile wood was a little core in the middle that mostly got cut around. In a young plantation log, it's most of the tree. So that bullseye stud you brought home is basically all juvenile wood. And juvenile wood doesn't warp because you stored it wrong. It warps because it was born to warp. The tension is baked in. You could store it in a climate-controlled museum, and it would still twist. Stack rushed kiln-drying on top of that, because mills are moving volume, not babysitting boards, and looser real-world tolerances on what passes as number 2 grade. And you get the pile you're picking through on a Saturday morning. Higher price, worse wood. That's the real story. Okay, so what do you actually do about it? Because you can't buy 1985 trees. You work with what exists, and you get smart about it. First mistake. People buy lumber the way they buy groceries. Grab what's on top, load the cart, go home. I get it. You're busy, and digging through the pile feels rude. Dig anyway. This is called culling. Every framer does it, and the store expects it. Just restack the pile like an adult. Pick up each board and sight down the edge, like you're aiming a rifle. You're looking for crown, which is a bow along the edge, twist, which is the killer, and cup across the face. A gentle crown is fine. Joists actually get installed crown up on purpose. Twist is the one you walk away from every single time, because a twisted stud telegraphs straight through your drywall forever. While you're at it, check the end grain. Bullseye in the center, back on the pile. Look for the grade stamp too. You want KDHTT on there, kiln-dried and heat-treated. And if you're buying for anything structural, number 2 or better. 10 extra minutes of culling saves you a weekend of fighting wavy walls. Here's a pro tip while we're at it. A $30 moisture meter from the same store will tell you more about a board than the price tag ever will. You want framing lumber under 19% before drywall goes anywhere near it. Second mistake, and this one drives me nuts, Buying lumber 2-3 weeks before the project because there was a sale, then leaning it against the garage wall. Seems smart, it's not. Modern lumber left loose does whatever it wants, fast. Buy as close to install as you can. Keep it banded together as long as possible. Store it dead flat off the concrete on stickers, and if it has to wait, strap or weight the top of the stack. Weight is your friend. A flat, banded, weighted pile stays usable. A lean-to against the wall becomes firewood. Third, and this is where people mess up during the actual build, every stud is not equal, so stop treating them like they are. When I frame a kitchen, the straightest boards in the whole load go in the wall that's getting upper cabinets because a stud with a 1/4-inch crown behind, a run of cabinets, turns into shimming misery and gaps you can see from the doorway. Same with any bathroom wall that's getting tile, especially big format tile, which hides nothing. Your mediocre boards go in closets, short walls, blocking, and anywhere nobody will ever hang anything nice. Sort your pile before you lift a nail gun. Costs nothing, changes everything. Fourth, know when to stop buying regular lumber altogether. Look, I get it. Engineered wood costs more and it feels like a gimmick if you grew up on solid sawn. But an LSL stud, laminated strand lumber, is arrow straight, stays straight, and runs maybe 2 to 3 times the cost of a regular stud. On a whole house, that's crazy money. On the one tall wall in your entryway, or that kitchen cabinet wall, or a plumbing wall you never want to open again, cheapest insurance you'll ever buy. Same logic on headers and long spans. An LVL beam won't sag and crack the drywall above your big living room opening 5 years from now. And today's number 2-dimensional lumber honestly might. And decks, don't get me wrong, pressure treated is fine, but it comes off the shelf soaking wet. And today's fast-grown treated wood shrinks and checks hard as it dries. People lay deck boards tight together, then panic when 1/4-inch gaps show up by fall. Either buy KDAT, kiln-dried after treatment, or let regular treated boards dry stacked and weighted for a few weeks before you fasten anything, and gap accordingly. Same principle inside the house, by the way. If your framing got rained on during construction, do not let anyone hang drywall until it's back under 19% moisture. Nail pops, cracked corners, and hairline cracks in tile are almost never a drywall problem. They're a wet lumber that kept shrinking problem. Now, let's talk about the part most homeowners forget, the conversation with your contractor. You don't need to be an expert. You need 3 questions. What grade of framing lumber is in my bid? Do you cull your loads or install whatever the truck drops? And will you use engineered studs on the cabinet walls and tall walls, if I pay the difference? A good builder answers those in 30 seconds and respects you for asking. A guy who gets cagey about lumber grade just told you everything you need to know about the rest of his work. And yes, I know some of you are going to say, your framer from 1979 never worried about any of this. He didn't have to. His lumber was better than his skills needed to be. Today, it's the opposite, and the craft has to make up the gap. Tell me in the comments which one you've already lived through. The twisted garage stack, the wavy cabinet wall, the deck that gapped out. Because I guarantee at least one of these shows up in almost every project I walk into. Here's the takeaway. Lumber didn't get worse because someone's cutting corners at your local store. It got worse because we're sawing boards out of teenage trees and charging old-growth prices for them. You can't change that. What you can change is picking every board that matters, storing it like it matters, putting your best wood where your eyes and your cabinets live, and spending a little extra on engineered material in the handful of spots that punish movement. That's not fancy. That's just knowing what you're working with. Hit like, subscribe, share it with someone who needs to see it. I'll catch you in the next one.